And I think this is a truism across cultural attractions, that when a person is involved in the interaction, it greatly increases the entire visit satisfaction. And so we knew that the people powered portion of it was critically important. And and that higher satisfaction brings repeat and referrals, etc. It's a very virtuous circle.
Welcome to the Attraction Pros podcast, where we discuss the latest trends and challenges facing the attractions industry today.
We chat with some of the top leaders in the field and provide resources that will help develop your career in this great industry.
I am Josh Liebman. I am obsessed with the guest experience and helping attractions make that their top priority for success.
And I'm Matt Heller. I am passionate about organizational effectiveness, leadership development, and employee engagement.
Now sit upright, hold on tight, and get ready for the Attraction Pros podcast.
Hey, Josh, how are you?
Hey, Matt. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm fan-patastic.
Fan what?
Fan-patastic.
Patastic?
Patastic. Yes. Almost.
I don't know. All right, you're keeping me on my toes.
I'm thinking of a children's show that would always say, "This is brought to you by the letter P," or whatever letter it happened to be. Was it Sesame Street, I think? Yes.
Sesame Street?
Yes. And the reason I brought that up is because there's a lot of P's in our keywords today. Purpose and people.
A lot of P's in our keywords.
There are. So
at least in the first two, not the third one. I don't think there's a single P in the third keyword.
Maybe we could add one. But anyway, welcome to the Attraction Pros podcast, brought to you by the letter P.
Pros podcast.
There you go. There you go.
That was your banter intro? We don't plan this in advance, people. We just
clearly
do this on the fly.
That's right.
We've only done this 453 times now.
Who are we talking to today?
Our guest today is Melissa Felder. She has been in the cultural attraction space for many years in the executive leadership role. She spent a lot of time with the California Academy of Sciences in San Francisco, also known as Cal Academy for short, and then spent some time as the interim executive director at CuriOdyssey in San Mateo, just south of the San Francisco airport. So a lot in the Bay Area and a lot specifically in cultural attractions. And let me tell you, she is passionate about purpose-driven organizations.
And that's one of the big things we get to talk about. Our purpose-driven organizations and, upholding mission statements and how those can change and evolve over time. Some of the other P's that we talked about were people-powered experiences, where we really focus on how the employees are bringing the exhibits and the attractions to life, because it's no longer just about, that static attraction. It's also got to be about how the team members are enhancing that experience for the guests.
Yeah, and there's a lot of data that shows, and Melissa references some of it, that your guests will have a stronger connection to your mission, to your purpose, and to their experience in general, whether you're nonprofit, for-profit, with the more people-powered experiences and those that are personally facilitated. She also shares her view of the future of cultural attractions, and she has a lot to say just on that one topic. And I look forward to listening back to this many years from now to seeing a lot of that come to fruition.
Well, I feel like it's time for us to pass the baton from our introduction to this interview with Melissa.
I'm just going to say, let's get to it, because I can't think of a P word. Let's push play. Hey, Melissa, welcome to the Attraction Pros podcast. We're so excited to have you on today. How are you?
I'm fabulous. This is great. This is fun.
Excellent. So let's jump into this. Tell us about yourself. Tell us about your background and your career.
Well, when I do sort of a snapshot pitch, I say something like, I am a purpose-driven cultural attractions executive leader with over 3 decades of professional experience developing and growing public-facing brands. And I did that in consumer packaged goods and technology, financial services. But the best of all is cultural attractions. It's really my love affair. And when I said 3 decades, I can kind of start a little bit from the beginning and not go into excruciating detail, but I kind of feel like I had sort of 3 chapters to my career, if you will, the beginnings of my career. After I got out of graduate school, I got functional experience in product management and marketing on food and beverage teams. And this was in consumer packaged goods, but that food and beverage experience actually also applies to cultural attractions. And I generally was at very sort of mature, large brands that had very slim margins. So this was challenging, but also really rewarding. The second chapter, I moved from being sort of a doer and a product owner into executive leadership. And I leveraged the skills I got before, and I did more general management. And I know general management is also a role that you see often in attractions. I was accountable for the P&L and, of course, had responsibility to direct all the functions, including sales, R&D, operations, finance, etc. And then I moved to very different kinds of organizations and learned how to build businesses from scratch. And this was in technology and specifically software. And then that was really, it was fun and rewarding, but also challenging in its own way because you're building organizations from scratch. And I'm proud to say that these startups are still around, which is very exciting. In fact, one of them HP bought. So that's pretty good. The third chapter was marked by leading large teams and setting strategic direction, being accountable for the experience, if you will, and we can talk a little bit more about what that means, the creation of the experience, the delivery of it, and the majority of revenue in leading regional organizations, such as AAA. And then after a few years, I was kind of at a professional and personal crossroads, and I realized I love leading these teams, but something was really missing. And I wanted to do it in an organization that sort of meant more to me and can maybe meet the needs of not society today, but what a little bit more critical to what we do every day. And so I started looking at sort of mission-based organizations and nonprofits. And I found my home at California Academy of Sciences, and this was almost 15 years ago. And I served there for most of that time through 3 different executive directors, 3 different mission statements, and we'll talk about that as it relates to being purpose-driven, if you'd like. And I asked for and got steadily increasing responsibility, moving from a CMO or a chief marketing officer, to a chief revenue and marketing officer to chief experience officer that oversaw the whole experience. And this is at the time almost 1.5 million visitors, and overseeing the aquarium, the planetarium, and the Natural History Museum. And for those of you that don't know, this is we're in the San Francisco Bay Area. And ultimately, after a good amount of time, I started thinking about what do I want to do? What do I want to do next? And I recommended a succession plan, which they rejected and then accepted. And so I left the academy almost a year ago, and I immediately I stayed involved with all the trade associations and kept my connections, but realized I really missed the space. And a couple months later, I joined another organization as an interim CEO, ED, executive director. And I did that about 9 months. And I'm thinking that's kind of what I want to do going forward. It's really fabulous to get to experience different organizations and see how you can contribute.
So you figured out what you want to do when you grow up.
Well, I mean, I guess then I'd be admitting I'm grown up, or I am a grown up. I'm still adulting every day. Every day something new comes in. But I think there are different things in different chapters of your life that make sense. And as I even retold that sort of history, I'm looking at it from this end of it. At the time in it, I didn't exactly know what the next thing was. And I did a variety of things across a variety of industries. little shorter stints, frankly, and a bunch of longer stints. When I say longer, I mean, 5-10 years at an organization. And one of I found my home in cultural attractions and really enjoy it and want to stay there. But I also know that the experiences in those other industries were really, really helpful and transferable. And there's some sort of truisms, and we can also talk about that if you want to as well. So.
We definitely do. But curious, the shift into cultural attractions. Can you talk maybe a little bit about kind of that pivot point? What was the draw that you really became very passionate about?
Well, I think most organizations will say they have a mission, and they usually have an articulated mission statement. Even for-profit entities do. But not all of them live into it. And I became more and more convinced that that the nonprofit sphere was probably a better fit for me, even though I was a business person. Most of my career is business, and that is one of the skills I bring to nonprofit and cultural attractions, and they tend to be nonprofits. And most of my career was working in public-facing entities and physical, tangible goods. And so this part of nonprofit that appealed to me is basically something that was place-based and a nonprofit. And that's sort of the cultural attraction space. And so I think, really it was going through sort of personal reflection while I was working in a for-profit that I wanted to move to a nonprofit and then digging in there. And I also was looking within the Bay Area and looking at what some of the different sectors were. I also knew, and this is, I think, somewhat relevant, while, sometimes when we say cultural attractions, it includes a lot of things, that the space in it specifically that appealed to me was more around sort of the science and the environment. And that's Cal Academy and CuriOdyssey. It's not to say that art wouldn't be interesting, but I don't feel it's as connected to who I am as a person and my skill set. I would between us, I would have to do a lot of upskilling if I was to be credible in art, less so than science, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting you talk about yourself being aligned with, the organization, and I think that also goes into the mission. Like, people really want to feel like they are aligned with the mission. And I'd love to go back to what you said about there was 3 different missions that you had to kind of go through and work with, and what that process was like, and also kind of maybe the transition from mission to mission, and kind of how that played out.
Yeah, I can do that. And the other little seed I'll plant in here as we talk about that is there's a concept about sort of the 3 purposes that someone can have. You can have the organizational one, the team you lead, and then your personal one. And they all need to be in alignment. They don't need to be exactly the same, but they need to be in alignment. They can't be in conflict. So at Cal Academy, when I came in, I believe our mission, our organizational purpose was explore, explain, and protect. And so, and that worked for a while. And that was actually when the Academy was getting rebuilt. They did a $500 million or $500 million building project, which was huge at the time. It was one of the largest ones. And had been closed for years, closed and relocated and reopened. And it was an appropriate mission for the time. But as we moved into leadership after that, the next leader came in with a perspective that there were certain words that were not sufficient, and they pushed it farther and moved the explain to something that was less about me talking to you and more about you understanding, which is learning, and then moved protect into sustain. Protect meaning we hold on to things and we don't share it. And sustain means we're looking forward to it, being existing in the future. So there are nuances to words, but they have implications, particularly if you're talking about what your narrative is and developing your experience. And then the third iteration is to regenerate the natural world through science, learning, and collaboration. Regeneration is a step beyond, because it's about healing and regrowing. So it's a step beyond sustainability, and sustainability, if you recall, is a step beyond protection. So these, I would say, are evolutions, and all of them were not inconsistent with my personal beliefs, and they are kind of indicative of the times and the times that are changing. And I think if you're not the leader of an organization, you do need to have some flexibility and fluidity to figure out how you hook into and connect with a given mission or purpose, and how you can make it sing. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but
This might be a loaded question here, but with the the mission of the organization, of even creating and defining the mission, I was thinking of just how you were describing that. Is not to say that that's the easy part, but that's the first step of defining the mission, and then really drawing the line of carrying it through on a day-to-day basis and really seeing it come to life. I've got to imagine that that's where the heavy lifting is done. And maybe, again, probably a loaded question, but what are some of the ways that mission in and of itself comes through kind of in the tactical, in those small moments, getting to those into the team members' job descriptions that give them kind of that immediate visual within their peripheral of how this fits into the overall mission?
That is an excellent question, and I think it is the crux of all of this. So I'll use an example: the last or current mission statement for Cal Academy: regenerate the natural world through science, learning, and collaboration. So I was running the museum experience, and your question is, how does this show up? How does this show up day to day? And this was a newly formed division that was looking across all of the different parts of the academy, and really the opportunity for us was to really think about how we live into that mission in everything we do. And so this team, the experience team or division, which was 180 some odd people in a whole variety of functions, got together and created a team purpose, which was consistent with the organizational purpose. And that is, together we create and amplify compelling experiences that inspire our audiences to develop deeper connections with science, nature, and each other. And while that might sound, it's lovely, right? But what does it really mean? What it really means is we believed that together we would create these experiences, but the whole reason why we were doing it is we wanted to inspire our audiences to connect with nature. And the reason why we did is this idea of connecting with nature and understanding it is a precursor for having agency in doing something to help protect the natural world or regenerate it into the future. So it's sort of, we kind of almost had to think about it as a theory of change. And I don't know if you've ever talked in any of your episodes about a theory of change, about how your vision and your mission actually do make an impact. And so a first step was this connecting people with nature and inspiring them basically to care. And so then we had to think about, well, what does that mean? Back to your question about the nitty gritty, what does that mean? That means that we developed exhibits and experiences very specifically designed to have people have really immersive experiences, whether it is with live animals or with aspects of the natural world. And by immersive, I don't mean, yes, we can throw some beautiful tech and screens at it, but mostly it is about things that you can see and touch and smell and be immersed around you, but it doesn't necessarily have to be delivered by technology. So it was embedded that sort of We want to connect people with nature or the natural world so that they care and do something. It was incorporated into everything that we did, including prompts that we would provide to our staff when they're engaging with guests, whether they're educators or guest experience staff. We arm them with little prompts that they could say, oh, like, why do you think that is, or what do you think you could do, or some things like that. So it did make its way through our sort of built experience into our people-powered or people-delivered experience as well, and of course into all of our Marcom and digital, etc. Is that what you were kind of leading to?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hopefully, I didn't jump over too many things. I think I compressed 2 years into like 2 minutes, but yes, that's the gist of it.
But yeah, I think we could probably, if we wanted to go deeper, we could take, 3 or 4 weeks to talk about all the things that really went on and how all that nitty-gritty stuff happened. But I do appreciate how you said, it's getting down to giving your team prompts and giving them direction and guidance on how to do this. Because one of the things that I've experienced working with cultural attractions is that the mission, a lot of times, it attracts people that want to do that anyway, right? That are interested in the natural world, that are interested in sustainability and regenerating, through nature. So you get that kind of buy-in, but then there's also people that, for whatever reason, they just need a job, and sometimes that doesn't necessarily align with the higher calling of the mission and the vision. So either way, I think the stance of saying we've got to teach our team what it means here, what this vision means here, I think is absolutely, on the right track. Obviously, it was very successful, so of course it worked. But I guess my curiosity, pun intended, is how this is sustained, and I'll use that word, day to day, over time, through different leadership changes and that type of thing, where, there might be different influences, there might be different people, saying, slightly different things, but on the same page of music, if that makes sense. But then just kind of sustaining that experience so that now when we look at it from a guest perspective, they're saying, yeah, every time I go, I'm wowed. This is amazing. This is great. The team is awesome. I want to keep coming back. So maybe it's kind of taking it down to that level too.
Well, I think at the Academy, I don't know how many, I think they have like 180,000 square feet of exhibit space. So it's pretty big, and you're not updating it all the time. That would be prohibitively expensive. But every time a new experience was brought on board, we went through the same process of explaining how it worked, why it was being done, and what are some things that you can say when you're interacting with guests. And we would do that in huddles, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. And we would do it, and then we would bring people back into the huddle and say, how did that go for you? Did people resonate? Did they understand it? And then we'd tweak it and turn it. And they were part of refining the messaging and the scripting based on their experience with it. And I think, yes, you have people that are just doing it for a job, but I think if you engage them in the process, they're much more likely to be fulfilled and feel like what they're doing matters and makes the difference. We carefully look at what our guest satisfaction scores are and a whole bunch of different elements, and so we can tell what's driving positive things. And we almost always got, and I think this is a truism across cultural attractions, that when a person is involved in the interaction, it greatly increases the entire visit satisfaction. And so we knew that the people-powered portion of it was critically important. And then, and that higher satisfaction brings repeat and, referrals, etc. It's a very virtuous circle, but that was really, really key. So it doesn't stop at, oh, we built this exhibit or we ran this ad campaign. It needs to really carry through and be consistent.
Yeah. So you've talked about Cal Academy, and you've mentioned a little bit of CuriOdyssey, and I've had the opportunity to visit both of them. And They're pretty different venues, and you spent some time as the interim executive director at CuriOdyssey, and wonder if you could talk about, yes, they're different venues, but where do they overlap? What are some of the biggest overlaps between the two?
Okay, so some of the areas that they have in common are um, they both have a mission is about a better future. So I'll tell you what CuriOdyssey's mission is. You'd think I'd have this memorized by now. Inspire a love for science and curiosity about the world to create a brighter future. And so that and regeneration at Cal Academy are about this sort of future, a better future that they want to be a part of. So mission, some similarities in mission, similar sectors. They're both in the science sector. CuriOdyssey is a science center and zoo, and they both have animals. Cal Academy is an aquarium, so they have more animals, more smaller animals. CuriOdyssey is a small zoo, so they have fewer but bigger animals. They serve a similar audience. Every organization, like, oh, we serve everyone. We're great for adults, we're great for families, we're great for kids. But at its core, both of them really serve a family audience. That's most of the audience that visits them. And then I would also say they have similar levers. One being marketing that can make a difference in what people know about you and their interest in visiting. And then I think the last one is this is close to home for the two of you. Both of them have very passionate staff that would do just about anything for them because they really believe in what they're trying to do and their role in it. So I think that in some ways, while they're massively different size and feel, if you will, I'd be interested in what you think the differences are. But I think that there's more similarities. I did find it pretty transferable to walk in and talk to them about the things that were on their minds and maybe some things that should be on their minds.
Melissa, I'd like to, I don't know if go back is the right term, but at least kind of look through the chapters that you've been through and kind of ask what were some of the things that you've experienced in those different chapters that still resonate with you now and you say, hey, I learned this from that chapter, I learned this from that chapter, and now it's become part of your executive leadership?
So, I don't have a personal catchphrase, but I have been, I don't think I do yet. I'll have to work on that. I have had the pleasure and honor of working for or serving leaders that did. And I pulled something from each one of them. And you might have heard of some of these before, but I'm going to just mention them because I think they're a little bit sometimes they can be a little bit trite, but maybe they're true. So trite but truisms, because they all get at something that I think is pretty important for leaders. The first one is, and I think you've probably heard of this one, do what you say and say what you do. And so it's this idea of is there consistency between the intent, how you voice it, and what your actions are. And this is also related, we didn't talk about this, but I am a big believer in transparent communications build trust. And with trust, you can do just about anything or overcome just about anything. And so embedded in that is this idea of telling people what you're doing and what you're intending to do and why. Another one that you hear all the time is the fake it till you make it. And I don't know that I really understood that. And I do think the fake isn't exactly right, but there have been at least 2 instances in my career where I had an opportunity to do something that I had never done before. And I was somewhat intimidated by it. And I had a leader that didn't say fake it till you make it, but what he did say is you wouldn't be given this opportunity. This was way back when I was in food and beverage. I worked for Del Monte and I moved into a vice president role, which was reporting to the the CEO and had a lot of board exposure. And I was a little bit intimidating. So we want to put you in this role if you weren't capable of it. And he's like, I'll be right here. He became a peer. He had been my boss and then he was a peer. He's like, I'll be right here. But we wouldn't have done this. The stakes are too high. They were about to IPO, believe it or not. Del Monte, 150-year-old brand, IPO'd. At any rate, that didn't go so well, and now they're private again. But so that is one example of it. Another one, when I went to technology, I wasn't a tech person, but they didn't want me for my tech background. They wanted me at the time for my marketing background. And so I felt like every single day I was having to, study and figure out what the heck we were even talking about in meetings, etc. And that took a little bit of time, but but I didn't go in saying I don't know. I went in saying I'm going to figure this out. I'm a smart, resourceful person, and I'm going to find out how to do it. And so this sort of fake it till you make it. The fake isn't exactly right, but lean into opportunities and be resourceful is I suppose what I would say I took away. Another one, I had a great boss when I worked for AAA, and he would say in almost every one-on-one, the first thing he said was, "How are you doing? Oh, how's your dog? How's your spouse? What'd you do this weekend?" He refused to talk business until you had talked personal. And it really threw me off. I'm just like, I just wanted to tell him what I was doing. I didn't, but it was really important to him. And he would say, people before pennies, deep connections before dollars. And he was steadfast in this. And that has really, really stuck with me. And I am proud to say that I have really close relationships with people that have worked for me and with me throughout my career. And I think his impact, his points were really, really good ones. You connect with people first, and that, the rest will work itself. Because you have a basis of, again, trust and able to do hard and wonderful things. So I think, I know there's I had a couple other ones that I kind of noted. You might not have heard this one. This was newish to me when I heard it. I heard it about 3 or 4 years ago. Have a strong back and warm front. Have you heard that? So what it means is be tough on standards of performance, but tenderhearted with people. And so you can still have high expectations and empathy at the same time. And indeed, that's what people are respected for. I mean, it's not, it's great. Oh, Melissa's really nice. Well, that's great that they think I'm nice, but I want them also to know that I have high expectations. This organization deserves excellence in performance. That's the only way we will get to the impact that we want to have in the world, et cetera. So I really think that that's a neat way of articulating strong back and warm front. And then the last one is stay curious, which it's not like stay thirsty, the Cuervo one, but stay curious about listening more and using inquiry to understand where people are coming from is more effective than being directive and telling people what to do. So staying curious is kind of the little mantra. It also ended up being the tagline for CuriOdyssey, not surprisingly, for their summer campaign last year. But anyway, so those are, I don't know, just slogans or taglines or truisms that have impacted me and that I try to think about and that I have written down, which is why, to sort of, reground from time to time if you need to.
That is a lot of really good career and leadership advice, just kind of just densely in there right there. That was fantastic.
I didn't invent any of them, so I apologize.
Sure. Yeah, no, you referenced all of them. So yeah, thank you.
I think it's a serious form of flattery. I'll go back and tell all the
Yeah.
the former bosses.
Thinking about the industry and particularly of science centers and cultural attractions and mission and purpose driven organizations. And I know we only can really scratch the surface on this here, but curious if, staying curious, if you were to look 10 years from now, what does this space look like? What do you envision?
So I think that there are converging trends, and we've got science centers and museums and their cousins or siblings, zoos and aquariums. And there are some sort of similar trends, I think, addressing both of them. But first, on science centers and museums, I think there's a through line about a shift between being a passive spectator, where you walk into a museum, museums in particular, and you look at things, and you probably don't ask questions. You look at something and then you move to the next thing and you look at it and the next thing. And there might be some wow moments, but the shift is from being a passive spectator to being an active participant. And science centers have been leading this way, and that they have had more interactivity in their experiences for some time, whether it is through sort of phenomena-based manipulatables such as Exploratorium, to pick something here in the Bay Area, that had more active participants. But I think that's where museums and science centers are moving much more into that space of active participants, whether it's with program presenters or the people powered part of the experience, or whether it's things that you can touch and hear. Even how exhibit labels, if you will, are being done are much more around provocative prompts to get people to think about things than this like narrative ivory tower, I'm going to tell you how the world works. So that moving from spectator to participant, I think is one. And I think another one is moving from sort of a one size fits all visit, where here's our stuff, I hope it works for you. We've designed it for a middle schooler, but I hope mom and dad can stay engaged, and I don't know what little Becky and Sally are going to do because they don't read. Moving from this sort of one size fits all to experiences that are more fluid, more personalized, and more connected and relevant to the real world. And you can do that in a lot of ways, having different ways for people to interact with what you have at your organization. While you might have things written, you might also have things that are audio or visual or manipulable. And I'm talking kind of about exhibit stuff, but I also think how you deploy your staff can contribute to that. What languages you use. There's a lot that can be done. How you curate a visit, to having your guest experience staff be able to suggest things to guest groups as they come in is a really great way. I won't call it profiling, but in a way you are, right? And having them versed with, what would be great for this young family is making sure that they have a stop in outdoors to run around partway through their visit, and don't miss that little Easter egg that is hidden in the tree. Can make a visit really special, and it's personalized based on what they need. So those are the kind of the two things, spectator to participant, and kind of mass delivered to more customization through things that you build or create or deliver. And then I think zoos and aquariums are also going to look different in the future. And there's other dynamics going on there. Although, one of them I was going to say is around ethics, and it's sort of the ethics of which animals are more publicly have more public approval, for example. And that varies regionally. That's really interesting. What is okay in the US is different than what's okay in Asia. or South America or Europe, which is really interesting. So I think around the ethics, there's also ethics in museums as well around provenance. Where did we get these items or artifacts, and are they yours? Are they ours? Do we have the ability to put them on display? Should they be repatriated? There's a lot in that area. But for zoos, ethics is a driver. There's a lot of new technology being deployed in zoos, specifically around the experience and guest operations, and then the missions of zoos has been shifting over time to be more overtly about conservation. And if you recall, I don't know, even years ago, it was, see our exotic animals, and understand about how they live. And it was more about learning about the animals, but now it's shifting into about the ecosystems and about animals. Are they nearing extinction, and what can we do to protect the world, and sort of shifting over to conservation. So we're going to continue to see that, and have it be very conservation forward. And so I think in a way that the trends are very linked, that we're going from this idea of sort of kind of pure entertainment sake, which is great for getting some engagement, to being a little bit more of a mission-driven experience. And I think the most successful organizations are going to really engage their stakeholders really truly in what they are doing and what they're all about. And they'll feel good about being there, not just because they're doing a good deed, but anyway. So I think that there are seeds that have been planted and shifts that have started that are going to continue, as opposed to a big radical thing. One of the things people are talking about right now for zoos that I don't think is going to happen, that they're just going to go to virtual animals, because we're not really going to have animals in human care. You notice it's animals in human care, not captivity. There's a lot of words around this, but I don't think we're all going to go to VR, and I don't think all museums are going to be digital end screens. This is my 2 cents, and I could talk for hours about this, but I won't.
That's okay. We would love to hear more about that. And I agree. I don't think we're going to virtual animals anytime soon. I think the allure of being in the same airspace as another creature, right, or however you want to refer to that animal, is so powerful that you can't substitute that in any way, shape, or form digitally. So
those tangible experiences are amazing. That's the real immersive, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, Melissa, this has been an amazing conversation. I think we blinked and it's kind of gone by in a blink. So I've got to now go back and listen to this again because it was so engaging. But as we're winding down, if you could share with people how they can get in touch with you if they want to learn more about the work that you're doing, where would you send them? Felder
at tamviewstrategy.com is a good start. And I am on LinkedIn. I should have m-felder /NorCal.
Awesome.
And if that's not it, I'll send you the right one.
We'll include the link in the show notes to make it very easy for anyone to connect with you. I echo Matt's comment. I feel like we blinked. This went by. I think I have 900 follow-up questions just from that last response of the future of. I mean, my brain is spinning on this. So we're gonna have to have you back and go even deeper into this. But for now, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you today. And for everyone out there who is watching and listening, just remember, we are all attraction pros.